Good morning. Welcome in. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Mississippi Smart Homes, mssmarthomes.com. mssmarthomes.com. Residential and commercial packages available, including, unbelievable sound systems for your living room, playroom, man cave, game room. mssmarthomes.com. mssmarthomes.com. Call Jake Manning and the team, mssmarthomes.com. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We welcome in Steve Robertson. GenesPage.com, his new book, The Dog Pile, on Mississippi State's national championship run, is out, and he is selling thousands of those. Steve, are y'all sold out of the first run yet?
Not yet, but I suspect we will be by the end of the month. Matter of fact, I was down in your neck of the woods last night, signing the remaining online orders up and through yesterday. And so if somebody has bought a book from the website, it's being processed now. It's been signed, and it'll be packed and shipped in the next probably today or tomorrow. So it's fun to kind of get that part of it behind you because you can start kind of managing day-to-day stuff. But reality of it is we're going to be out of books here pretty soon, but don't worry, more are on the way. So.
That's all right. That's a good thing. Do you have – I'm sure you have some signings this weekend. Where are you next?
Yeah, so I will be at Barnes & Noble in Starkville on Friday and then Barnes & Noble in Ridgeland on Saturday. And so that'll be interesting. I'll have to miss the baseball game, but, sometimes duty calls. But, it kind of is what it is. And we kind of knew when we didn't get it for the holidays, there's probably going to be some conflicts at times. And so we're going to be I'm checking the times for you right now. So
okay.
Friday in Starkville is to be announced, but it'll be 2 to 4 Saturday at the Barnes & Noble in Ridgeland. They're near you.
Okay. There we go. Sales, you're number one in the state. Is that right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, we had limited distribution the first week, and a lot of it just kind of depends on timing, And so the first full weekend release, it's number one in the state of Mississippi, which is quite an honor. I'd like to thank everybody that's bought the book and helped promote the book, and we expect to be number one again this week.
Okay. Let's go to baseball. What was your takeaway from the weekend? The Dogs, very competitive game on Friday, blown out on Saturday, and then they blow Long Beach State out on Sunday. What was Steve Robertson's one big takeaway from the weekend?
Well, offensively, they have some things to figure out. And, they had to, score 17 runs yesterday, which you should, against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and, scored a dozen on Sunday. And so, you feel like, okay, maybe they found some things. But, until you really get into the heart of the schedule, you're not going to really have a good, honest assessment of where you are. And that, you can take a snapshot from the first weekend of the season and make some declarations, and you'd be wrong. That doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. One weekend doesn't make a season unless it happens to be the one in Omaha. And so I think you can overreact, as you guys have talked about on your show before. But, the disappointing thing was that offensively it just took so much to get going, and then you basically, waste that great start from Landon Sims. I mean, he goes 7 innings pitched, strikes out 13, doesn't walk anybody, and then he takes the loss. It's like he gives up that solo home run, with 2 outs in the 7th, and next thing you know, it's a 3-0 ball game. But the reality of it is nothing beats nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can say, well, bullpen didn't hold it down. Well, so you lose 1-0, you lose 3-0. You got to go score some runs. And then, Saturday they jumped out and responded and had a lead. And I, that's the thing. Junk ball pitchers are tough on everybody. When you're an SEC team, people are like, oh man, this kid throws 95, 96. Well, that's what they want to see. They'll eat that up. Everybody in the SEC is hunting the fastball. And so some of these West Coast pitchers, though, those guys know how to pitch. And Luis Ramirez, I thought, was outstanding for Long Beach State. He was able to throw his breaking stuff for strikes on both sides of the plate, change speeds, had about a 15 to 20 mile differential at times between his fastball and his changeup. And he was throwing that two-seam sinker and State's beating the ball in the ground. Well, not everybody has that skill set, but you're going to see that again. So if you're Mississippi State, you're going to have to get that handled. You're going to have to figure out a way to get that guy out of the ball game earlier and get into a bullpen. Because, when you see 95, 96, I mean, that's a Tuesday in the SEC, but you don't always see guys that can throw 4 pitches for strikes to both sides of the plate.
I thought Long Beach State was really, really good. They were impressive. What about Tanner Leggett? I know it's early, but do you expect him to continue to, play a lot over the course of the season? How do you see his role developing?
Well, I love having a guy like Tanner Leggett, the utility guy that can play center field. He can play third. He can play short. He can play second. I joked with him yesterday. I said, I think you've done everything but pitch and catch. And I wouldn't be surprised to find out he could do that, but it gives Chris Lemonis that competitive individual that pushes everybody else at their respective position. So if you're Lane Forsythe, and Lane is Tanner's a great defender. Lane's an elite defender. But the question at some point you have to ask yourself is, we're talking percentage points here. How much offense are we trading to be a little bit better defensively? Then you look at second base. You got R.J. Yeager. It took Scotty DeBrule a while to kind of adjust to, big-time pitching here when we got into the SEC. And so that gives Chris Lemonis, some real options because, now all of a sudden, okay, we've competed all fall. We've competed in the preseason. Well, now you've got a starting spot. Well, no. I mean, this isn't the days of the 1980s where we pick a starting 9 and ride it all year. Chris Lemonis has shown time and time again he'll make an in-season adjustment. So if you think you've made it, Chris Lemonis and Tanner Leggett are here to tell you you haven't made it. You have to keep working. And I think that makes this team a better baseball team just because of the fact that you've got a guy that is capable of making plays, not to mention one of the most iconic hits in the history of the program. This is a guy that's proven he can do it at the big level.
Hey, this is going to be – I agree with you. I think it's a good problem to have. You want depth, and you want a guy that's pushing the other starters. Let's go to Quarter in center field. Everybody raves about his bat. And that, if he stays right, this kid has crazy, crazy talent potential and can absolutely rake. What are you hearing out of the clubhouse on Quarter?
Well, he certainly helped his cause this weekend. I mean, he didn't play in the fall. He was rehabbing, his shoulder. He's had a good preseason, and I think, we talk so much about Jess Davis and Braylon Skinner. I think Quarter's just a guy that you can kind of plug and play wherever you have a need in the outfield. I think he's athletic enough to play all 3 spots out there, which, again, gives Chris Lemonis, that competitive key. And I think he showed over the weekend that, he can step up and make some plays. And I thought Sunday, R.J. Yeager and Quarter were kind of the rally starters. You go back and look at the box score, every big scoring sequence for State until that game was busted open involved those 2 guys. And I think Quarter's one of those guys, too, that is just really beginning to scratch the surface of his potential. And I expect a big year from him. And I think that he's a guy, again, that, he's a name that fans aren't quite as familiar with. But by the end of the year, there's going to be a lot of kids from, Madison and Ridgeland and lining up outside to get their picture made with that guy. Everybody's going to know who that guy is before the year's over.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show and the Bucked Up Energy Drinks guest line. The bottom line is Tanner Allen was the dog and the alpha, and he was the college baseball player of the year. And Rowdy Jordan was a multi-year All-SEC player, and they are gone. Now, this could take a while, and they may not have it. They may just not have it this year. How does this factor into Cam James and Logan Tanner over the next whatever it is, Steve, 15 games, 20 games, 25 games, trying to be the man after 6 years of Tanner Allen and Jake Mangum?
Well, I think in some respects you have to develop some of that. And it's the thing that I don't think can be underscored here is, Logan Tanner, Luke Hancock, Cam James, they've watched Tanner Allen lead. That they are well aware of who needs to be the dominant voice in the clubhouse. And so now it's their turn. LT is one of those guys that has never been short of confidence. And so he is a guy that I expect to be a very vocal leader, but he's also a guy too that has credibility. You know, he's a guy that's made the big hits. He's walked off some games. He's made the big throw. And so when he speaks, that voice carries some momentum with the guys in the dugout. Luke Hancock, a guy that always gets caught doing the right thing. Not the most vocal guy, but he has kind of elevated that aspect of his personality here in recent weeks. But you're right, though. It's kind of a trial by fire. You know, it's like this time last year, people were thinking, well, what kind of leadership do we have? You know, Jake Mangum was the alpha, and Tanner Allen was kind of the Robin to his Batman. Well, then they transitioned. And, of course, T.A. became the face of this program. And I'll submit to you, Bo, maybe the best college baseball player to ever wear the M over S is Tanner Allen. When you look at what he's done, National Player of the Year, national champion, you look at the great things that he did. And, he was the guy, too, if it had been a full draft here back in 2020, he's not around for 2021. And I submit to you, Mississippi State doesn't win a national championship without Tanner Allen. But is this team capable of getting to Omaha? They absolutely are. But when times get tough, you're going to need somebody to stand up and say, hey, we got to move on from this. I think that can be LT. But I think this year it's probably a leadership by committee rather than one or two guys.
Okay. Well, that can work. It can sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Every sports team and so on is different. I think you make a great point. It did take Tanner Allen a little bit of time to be the guy, but there wasn't any doubt in April, May, and June. So there's still another 20, 25 games or whatever it is to see what shakes out. And I think you're on to something with Logan Tanner. Do you expect a shakeup in the starting rotation this weekend for Mississippi State against Northern Kentucky?
Nah, I don't think you make any decisions like that after one weekend. I mean, I think if we look at this, okay, remove wins and losses from it, just looking at starting pitching performances, right? Well, you know what you have in Landon Sims. And I think a lot of people breathed a big sigh of relief when they saw how well he handled that. It's like, okay, all right, cool, that's handled. You get into Saturday, and KC actually had a pretty good start, and the next thing you know, things kind of got away from him. First college start. I don't think you can make any adjustments at this point, based on one appearance, because I thought he went out there and tried to compete. He didn't go out there and walk a bunch of people. Will he be better this week? We certainly hope so. But you have options. I mean, you saw how well Fristow pitched yesterday. And granted, it's a much different level of competition. But I thought we saw a more mature Jackson Fristow yesterday. And I mentioned that in postgame. Last year, if he ever had any adversity, he would then put the entire mantle of Mississippi State baseball on his shoulders and think, okay, I got to go strike everybody out. And then he was scared to get hit. It was like, well, my guy may make an error, because that was the thing too. He was really hit with a rash of those things last year, where it took a while to kind of settle the infield behind him, and then he takes all that pressure internally. You didn't see that yesterday. There was a couple things that happened. A ball hits the bag, and what does he do? He goes right back and attacks the next hitter. So that gives you some options if you need it on Saturday. But I thought the best pitching performance of the newcomers, or the guys that are relatively new to Mississippi State pitching, was Cade Smith.
Sure.
I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I think that's the biggest thing from the weekend that I take away is, okay, I don't have to worry about this anymore, because I think this is a guy, and again, it's just one weekend. You don't want to have that. You don't want to have a double standard and say, well, don't judge negative, but let's praise them too much for the positive. I think if Cade Smith can go out there and pitch even anywhere close to that, Mississippi State's going to win a lot of baseball series, because I think Landon Sims is going to win more than he loses. But what I love about Cade Smith, and I said this on my own show, is his delivery is repeatable. It's like you look at some guys and mechanically they're a mess and they end up getting hurt. You look at Kumar Rocker last year. He's a guy that's all over the place. And so as a result, he kind of overthrows. But you look at Cade Smith, and I'm not trying to say, again, it's kind of like the Tanner Allen thing. If there's a full draft in 2020, Cade Smith's not on campus. Well, now you have him. This guy's a future big leaguer. And you watch how effortless his delivery is, how sound he is mechanically, and how repeatable everything is from the same arm slot. No matter if he's throwing the fastball, the change, the breaking ball, it all looks the same coming out of his hand, and the spread is just ridiculous. And so that was among the most encouraging things to me. And so I think you probably run the same three guys out there this weekend. And, and if maybe if KC is not ready to be a starter, maybe you slide Fristow in there the next weekend. But I think at this point, you don't make any changes, and I think Foxhall probably sees it the same way.
Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast on the Out of Bounds Show. What about Preston Johnson? Where do you see? Does he end up back, or not back, but as a starter? Is he long mid relief, or do you think he settles in as the closer?
I think he could be any of those three. I don't know that Stone Simmons doesn't end up being the closer, to be honest with you, but at least he'll get the opportunity, I think, to do that. But I like Preston Johnson as the first guy out of the bullpen. He's kind of got that fireman mentality. I mean, it's like even when he comes in with runners on or whatever, you give him a clean inning, he's a strike thrower. Now, of course, he walked 4 over the weekend, but he also pitched himself out of that same jam that he put himself in. So I think he has a pretty well-defined role as the first guy to the bullpen, but he is a guy, obviously, if you can't settle a rotation, you put him out there. He was a starter in junior college, and so it's not like it's a foreign concept to him. And to hear Fristow say they got 6 or 7 guys who could start on the weekend, you didn't have that last year, and I think that's probably where this team is different. Last year, all your pitching depth was in the bullpen. This year, I think it's going to be in your starters, and I think at the back end is where you kind of got to figure some things out. And so, I mean, how many games did we see last year? It's like, okay, if we could just get to the 4th or 5th inning and turn it over to the bullpen, you felt like the game is over. I think you'll see these guys go deeper in the ball games and be a lot more pitch efficient because of the fact the strength of the staff is going to be in the starting rotation.
We mentioned Tanner Leggett earlier and how he's going to push to chew up innings and ABs. Who else on the squad do you think that will push, regardless of position, for some innings and some at-bats?
We talked about Matt Corder, but, look at Drew McGowan. Kellum Clark is kind of scuffling a little bit right now, and I'm not worried about that. They'll get that right. That guy's a big leaguer. It's just a matter of time. He's struggled a little bit in the preseason, but they'll get him going. I mean, he's hitting the baseball hard. He's kind of getting out on his front foot a little bit and elevating some things, and, he's still a younger guy that's kind of getting a sense of himself. He's going to be fine. But, Drew McGowan's a guy that was a reserve outfielder most of the year. But, people forget when State started the season out in Arlington, Drew McGowan's in the starting lineup. And this is a guy that has some starting experience, but he lost that job last year. They put him in the ball game on Sunday, and he has a couple of big hits. Then he starts the game yesterday. And so, again, it gives Chris Lemonis some options. I mean, you've already had, 6 different players or 5 different outfielders that have started games for you, 4 games in. And that doesn't even include Jess Davis, who transferred in from UAB, that, has played some as a reserve. But, I think Drew McGowan could kind of be a bit of an X factor there in the outfield because, hey, Kellum Clark, I think, has played really well defensively, but the offensive piece hadn't really come around yet this year. But we saw what it was down the stretch. He has it in him. But if he, you don't want to let him go through, 4 or 5 games where he loses confidence, maybe you give him a day off. And I think Chris tried to do that yesterday. But it's good to have those guys that, number one, have some big conference experience under their belt. But also, 2, when a guy needs a day off, you can give him a day off and not worry about having to lose a ball game.
All right, I haven't tracked what's happened in Georgia. Let's switch gears to football. We got a couple of minutes here. I know Matt Luke stepped down. There were rumors of 6 guys that hit the Twitter and internet over who could be considered to replace Matt Luke. One of them was Mason Miller, who played at Valdosta State under Mummy and Leach and is currently the O-line coach at MSU. What have you heard?
I haven't heard much, and to be honest with you, I know geographically it's a fit. I just don't know if philosophically it's a fit. Mason Miller was a running back, basically a fullback, and so he's kind of learned offensive line play as a coach. And, he's a Mike Leach guy. He's a guy that, very committed to the air raid. So I don't know when you begin to break down, what Georgia runs versus what Mason Miller has run throughout his career, and it's not just at State and at Washington State, but even when he was, at Southeastern Louisiana with Mummy, he is an air raid offensive line coach. Does that mesh with what Kirby wants to run? I don't think so,
No.
But I don't think you can just dismiss it, because, with the athletes that Georgia has, I'm sure you could be a pretty quick study. But I just think, I'm not overly concerned about it at this point. Of course, anytime somebody has a chance to go home, you kind of raise your eyebrow a little bit. I just don't know if it's the best fit.
Right. No, I agree. They still like to pound it and so on. Okay. 10 to 12 practices in spring ball. Will there be chatter about Sawyer Robertson closing the gap on Will Rogers?
Well, there absolutely will be, whether it's true or not,
because everybody loves the backup.
Yeah, well, there's not a more popular guy on the Mississippi State campus than a backup quarterback. I mean, and just leave it to some of our message board posters. If there's ever a walk-on out there that ever completes a pass in a scrimmage, he's going to be the guy. It's like, it's funny how that works. But yeah, listen, I still think Will is going to be the starter this year. I think Sawyer does make it interesting, and maybe you sprinkle him in a little bit this year. I think it could be awfully interesting in 2023. I think a lot of it kind of depends on Sawyer's development. But, he understood when he got here that he was not coming into a wide-open quarterback competition. He understood that Will was expected to be the guy, and he would give him a chance to compete. And had he shown up in January and not played high school baseball, maybe we're having a different conversation today. But, he is all those reps behind Will, not to mention all the game experience. And so, I still think it's Will Rogers' job all the way. But I do think you see Sawyer Robertson a little bit more in 2022.
All right, we'll leave it there. Steve wanted to talk 20 minutes of Ben Howland, but we're going to do that next time.
Yeah,
and we'll do that. We'll save that for next week after they beat South Carolina today and beat Vandy. Then we'll bring Steve back on to preview the Auburn game. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com. The book, The Dog Pile. He'll be in Jackson or Ridgeland at Barnes & Noble on Saturday. I think he said 2 to 4. He's going to miss the game. How about that? But he'll sell a ton of books. So it's what it is. He's number 1 in the state of Mississippi. I didn't know this. They throw out the rankings every week, which is kind of cool. We're live in the Bank Plus studio, Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Lunch today brought to you by Sal and Mookie's in Madison. And Tuesday through Friday, Sal and Mookie's does pizza slice specials. They usually drop it within a few minutes, match it with the Caesar salad. 1, it's not expensive. 2, it's delicious. 3, you get it on the fly, which is really, really nice. Also want to give you a shout out. Here's something I want you to look for at your local area supermarket, grocery store, or service station, like Fleetway Market or Corner Market. Jameson Ginger Ale and Lime. Cocktails in a can. Jameson Ginger Ale and Lime. It is really, really good. You also have, the Crown Royal and Coke and some others out there that we're going to tell you about. But one that you may want to try is Jameson Ginger Ale and Lime. And whether that's at Fleetway Market, Corner Market, or your local grocery store or service station. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Fueling Up at Fleetway Market. See ya.